Okay, how do you explain something that you can't see, you can't touch, and honestly, you can barely even wrap your head around? Well, today we're jumping into a really cool study that found a surprisingly simple answer for one of the most abstract topics out there, our solar system.
All right, so first things first, why is learning about space so tough to begin with? Let's break down the core problem these researchers were trying to tackle.
I mean, of course you have, right? We all have. It is hard to get your mind around concepts that are totally invisible or just out there. And that is the exact problem when you're trying to learn about the sheer scale of space.
Yeah, teaching astronomy is a unique kind of challenge. The ideas are incredibly abstract. We're talking about distances and sizes that are just seriously mind-bending. You need some pretty solid 3D thinking skills just to get started. And on top of all that, students don't come in with a blank slate. They walk into the classroom with all these ideas they've picked up from movies, TV shows, and the internet. And these little misconceptions can really get in the way of understanding the actual science. So, faced with this massive challenge, what did the researchers do? Well, they turned to one of the oldest and most powerful tools we have for learning anything. They use something called analogical reasoning, and it's not as fancy as it sounds, I promise. The idea is actually super simple. You take a concept you don't get, that's the target, and you compare it to something you already know really well from your everyday life. That's the analog. It basically builds a bridge from what you know to what you don't. And listen, this is not some newfangled teaching gimmick. Scientists have been using analogies for centuries to have those big aha moments. Kepler imagined planetary motion working like a clock. Benjamin Franklin connected the dots between lightning and electricity. And even today, we learn about electric current by thinking of it like water flowing through pipes. It's a classic, tried and true way to make sense of the world. Which brings us to the really fun part of this story. How did these researchers take this super powerful tool and use it to teach a bunch of 7th graders about the solar system? So the study zeroes in on this one class of 20 students in Turkey. And the whole goal was to take these huge abstract ideas, planets, orbits, moons, and make them totally concrete and easy to remember by creating a brand new analogy from scratch. And this is where it gets really clever. They imagined the entire solar system as a local neighborhood or district. The sun, that's the head of the district, the person in charge. The planets, those are all the neighbors living on the block. The moons, or satellites, they're the planet's children. And the gases in each planet's atmosphere, well, that's just their own personal perfume. By giving the planets personalities, they could bake scientific facts right into their character. So, for instance, you have Mercury introducing himself as this little gnome because he's so small. He lives alone because he has no children, get it, no moons, and his house is super hot because he lives closest to the head of the district, the sun. It's brilliant. And the analogy works perfectly for a planet like Jupiter, too. He's the huge man of the neighborhood, the biggest one around. And his 63 children, yep, you guessed it, those are his many moons. This instantly gives you a feel for his massive size and his huge family of satellites in a way that just sticks in your brain. And of course, you've got Saturn. How do you explain those iconic rings? Simple. You turn them into a fancy hat. Suddenly, Saturn has this very distinct, memorable personality, and at the same time, you're learning that it's the second biggest planet in the whole neighborhood.
But this wasn't just about telling a fun story and calling it a day. Oh no, this super creative analogy was carefully plugged into a formal 5-step teaching strategy.
The researchers took their solar system neighborhood story and embedded it right into a very well-established educational framework. It's known as the 5E learning model. And it's pretty intuitive. It has 5 stages. First, you engage the students, get them curious. Then comes the explore phase, and this is the sweet spot. This is where our neighborhood analogy comes into play. After they've explored, the teacher helps them explain what they figured out, elaborate by connecting it to other things, and finally, they evaluate what they've learned. It's all about building new knowledge right on top of what you already have. So this all sounds great in theory, right? A fun story, a structured plan. But here's the million-dollar question. Did it actually work? Did turning planets into people really help these kids learn? Well, to find out, the researchers gave the students a test before any of the lessons started, and then the exact same test again afterward. And the results, well, they weren't just good, they were staggering. Before the analogy, most students knew very little and had a ton of those misconceptions we talked about. After the lessons, the change was just wow. I mean, just look at this chart. It tells the whole story. On the question about which planet has the most satellites, or children, only one student got it right on the pretest. One. But on the post-test, after meeting the huge man Jupiter with his 63 children, all 20 students got it right. That's not just an improvement, that's a complete transformation.
And for anyone who loves data, this was not a fluke. The statistical analysis showed the results were significant. That little p less than 0.01 you see there, it basically means there's less than a 1% chance this amazing improvement happened just by random luck. This method had a real, measurable impact.
But numbers only tell part of the story. The real proof is hearing from the students themselves. One student said that if the teacher had just lectured, they wouldn't have remembered anything. But because they used the analogy, the lesson was more enjoyable and, this is the key part, more instructive. That's the magic combo.
Okay, so let's pull back and look at the big picture here. What's the major takeaway from this awesome little experiment in this Turkish classroom?
So why does this work so well? It really comes down to how our brains are wired. An analogy acts like a bridge. It takes something totally new, abstract, and complicated, like our solar system, and connects it directly to a concrete, familiar experience that's already locked away in our long-term memory, like knowing what a neighborhood is. It gives the new information a place to stick. At the end of the day, this study shows that a good story can be one of the most powerful tools for understanding we have. It's a reminder for teachers, for science communicators, for really all of us, that sometimes the best way to explain something complicated is to find a simple, powerful comparison. So I'll just leave you with this question. What complex idea are you going to simplify next?